Greetings and salutations, friends. Welcome to another glorious day at the Tango Hotel. Today, we are here with Tango Talks to talk about your favorite developer, Pavois Interactives, developer of the recently kickstarted game, Terra Invicta, and their latest Dev Diary 3, to be precise, where we talk about terrestrial warfare, the solar system, and space habitats. Buckle up and get ready, boys. We're about to dive right in. Our first discussion point is Armies, which will represent significant concentrations of troops, machines, and aircraft, along with the support systems that allow that country to occupy large amounts of enemy territory. The current iteration of the game has 6 armies for the United States, 4 each for Russia, China, and India, and 1 each for the United Kingdom, France, Germany, Egypt, Iran, South Korea, North Korea, Pakistan, Turkey, and Israel. Armies are usually used to fight the nation's war, and who controls that army is set by the executive control point. So the nation itself could be at war, and you could hold your armies in reserve if you aren't interested in supporting it. That'll definitely lead to some interesting situations, to say the least. Armies will have 2 primary stat points that determine how they will fight: military tech level and strength. Mil Tech is a nation-level stat you can increase via the National Priorities mechanic. It is capped globally until some technologies are unlocked. The current value range is from 0 to 7.99. In the 2021 scenario, the initial cap is 5.99, and all nations start somewhere in the 2s, the industrial age, 3s, the atomic age, or 4s, information age. 0 and 1 represent pre-industrial armies. Strength of an army measures how much damage that army has taken, and armies repair themselves when not fighting in a friendly region. Your counters can also lead an army by lending them their command attribute during an advised mission. Yes, indeed, that sounds absolutely fantastic. Which will increase that army's chances of doing damage to an enemy army. When your army is occupying a region where no other enemy armies are present, it's a basic capture the flag, occupy the region, but you will be battling local defense forces, which uses the nation's tech level, and you will take damage from them. Badly damaged armies may flee in the presence of the enemy like the cowards they are, and may also be destroyed entirely when the strength reaches 0. Once a region is 100% occupied, it ceases fighting, but it will not change hands until the end of the war. Local infrastructure will take significant damage during fighting, although your mil tech will decrease the chances of that happening due to more precise weaponry. Sufficient damage will also count as an atrocity by the army's owning faction. So keep it precise and do not eyeball it, boys. Could cause trouble down the road. To win the war, you must occupy the enemy's capital region. When the war is over, it triggers a regime change events. Claimed regions change hands to the occupier and its allies. If any of the invaded nation remains, its control point owners are replaced with those of the victor. Some of the nation's stats, like democracy and unrest, change during the regime change, sometimes in unpredictable ways. Armies in an enemy region not engaged in a battle can also be used to strike space facilities directly or cause widespread economic damage. Burn it to the ground and salt the earth! Die, invaderous scum! Is what that says to me. The aliens, that's spelled Xenoscum, have their own armies, and at some point will arrive by spaceship and function more or less like Earth armies. It will be rather important if you are, say, playing as the Resistance to be prepared when they arrive, to cleanse and purge. And apparently, instead of just sending regular armies, they also send giant xenofauna. Yay! Naval flags are also getting added to an army via the Build Navy priority. However, in wartime, a nation must possess naval superiority over its enemies to be able to travel overseas. Armies can take damage in 2 other ways: nuclear attacks and orbital bombardments from fleets, both of which are very unpleasant. There will also be off-Earth ground combat with space marines and habitats. Yes, indeed, in a smaller scale, that will be handled by a different mechanism entirely, which will be touched on in future dev diaries. Boys, I can't wait for this one. Oh, yes. And now we scale it on up to the solar system. Yes, indeed. Here we go. The core of the storyline will be industrializing outer space. Yes, indeed. And the assumption is made that it is simply too expensive to move enough material from Earth's surface to space to mount a sustained defense against the aliens. Instead, Earth will be a bootstrap to a self-supporting space economy in which you mine asteroids, moons, and other planets. Gotta give the devs credit on this one. Props for the authenticity, because it is very true that It is very expensive to move personnel and material into orbit from Earth, and it will be much less expensive to do so from outposts in orbit or on the moon. We will be able to choose how complex the solar system will be. The current setup has 4 choices ranging from basic, with 60 bodies, to the full system with around 330. They are doing this in part to serve for a broader range of system specs, which, bravo. All setups will have all the major planets, large and well-known moons, largest asteroids, and several Kuiper Belt dwarves. So that means no matter which your choice, what system you have, all the major players shall be on the board. All bodies in the solar system are positioned with their real-world Keplerian orbital elements. You guys rock, you know that? The cutoff to include bodies was an aphelion of 50 AU, that's astronomical units, the distance between the Earth and the Sun, and an aphelion is the point in an object's orbit where it is the furthest from the Sun. So, to put that in a nice little bow, for an object to be included, the furthest point in its orbit from the Sun must be within 50 times the distance between the Earth and the Sun. They have also included every asteroid in the asteroid belt that is larger than 200 kilometers in diameter, and lots of smaller, interesting ones. That'll be fun. The cutoff for moons and near-Earth asteroids has been around 10 kilometers. But we may get smaller ones to add stepping stones that are within easy reach of the early game. They are modeling the solar system in 3 dimensions, so objects do indeed have orbital inclinations. That would be tilt versus the solar plane. The solar system also has Lagrange points. Yes, they've done it, boys! At sites that you can travel to and build at in the solar system. These are interesting points created by a confluence of gravity between 2 bodies where things tend to stay in fairly stable positions. They make nice anchorages for stations and fleets, and they're not wrong about that. Earth alone has several within the Earth-Moon system, and they are primo spots for us to build really awesome, the best space stuff. And I'm really glad to hear that they're taking advantage of the Lagrange points, because they are something you rarely ever see in mainstream sci-fi. You get it in a lot of books and stuff where they talk about it, but it's rare to see it in video games where they model these, because they are very important to humans getting into space, because you can put a space station or an outpost in Lagrange point 1 or 2, and they will not move relative to the Earth-Moon system. And again, most games would never, ever put something this complicated, I'm doing air quotes, in a game, because most people don't even know what a Lagrange point is or that they even exist. Let's just be real here. The devs also point out that the solar system is indeed gigantic, and many things are extremely far away, which will take significant amounts of time to reach. All bodies and Lagrange points have 1 or more circular orbits around them where you can park fleets and build space stations. This is a simplification to keep the game digestible. The alternative is to ask players to draw ellipses for unique orbits. Wouldn't that be fun? And I can completely understand why they did that. That would be a bit ridiculous, but it would also be amazing. A man can dream, can't he? Moving on. All space bodies will have at least 1 hab site, with the exception of Venus and the gas giants Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. Venus being a hell world, so, none of that now. Larger bodies will have 4, 6, or 16, the last for Mars, Ganymede, Callisto, and Titan. Mercury has 8, although it's big enough for 16, we're only letting you build on the poles, reasoning that it's too darn hot anywhere else, and I would agree. Because unfortunately, Mercury is not, in fact, tidally locked to the sun. It actually has a 3-2 resonance, which means its orbit is shorter than its day. Interesting, yes. Now, they also talk about building aerostat bases, that would be floating cities, above Venus and gas giants, but unfortunately, that would require significant art without many new options for gameplay, so maybe one day. I'm thinking mods myself. Each hab site will be assigned a mining profile based on what we know about the body. Big bodies will have 1 or more profiles unique to them. Asteroids are based on their spectral type. The primary 3 are stony, carbonaceous, and metallic. And the actual values for each site will be randomized within a range at the campaign start. So metallic asteroids will have lots of metals, but not always the same amount between campaigns. That is an awesome decision right there. Carbonaceous will tend to have lots of volatiles, and stony asteroids will have few metals, a little water, and occasionally a good source of fissibles. Fissibles? To settle a space body, we must first prospect it. This will tell you how much of each resource a HAB site can produce. You can prospect a space body in 3 different ways. You send a probe from Earth or a nearby shipyard, put a ship with a space science lab in low orbit and scan or steal the prospecting data from another faction. That sounds fun. There are several global missions, techs like missions to Mars, that unlocks your ability to prospect and travel to other parts of the solar system. Once a HAB site is prospected, you can found a base there. And lastly, some orbits and HAB sites also have a radiated tag because the conditions there are especially harsh for life. This includes medium Earth orbit in the Van Allen belts. Oh yeah. The orbits of Mercury and anything near Jupiter because it is a giant badass. Building HABs there is much more expensive because it needs extra shielding. Yes, more shielding. Always need more. And now we come to our final section of today's Dev Diary, habitats. There are 2 types of habitats, stations, which go in orbit, and bases, which go on a HAB site, and they are composed of modules. Both types of habitats come in 3 sizes. Stations grow from platforms to orbitals, and then to rings. Bases start as outposts, grow to settlements, and finally become colonies. The size determines both how many modules you can have, for 12 or 20, plus the core, and the maximum size of each module. All habitats have a core module. Upgrading the core upgrades the entire station and unlocks new module slots. So you may have a US flag, a NASA flag, or a United Nations flag on your ship or HAB, but what matters is that the people are really working for your faction. You may have found a habitat in a few ways. One is to launch the core module from Earth. This can be a bit slow if the location is far from the home world. A second is to develop and build kits your ships can deploy when they arrive in orbit or land on a space body. A third is to found HABs from other habitats in the same planetary system that have a factory module. Now that sounds interesting. So you could potentially use a planet's moon, like say Mars's moons, to actually build habitats on Mars from a factory HAB on the moon. That sounds really interesting. And of course, all habitat modules that are not your core modules require power to function. Yes, more power! Initially, only solar power modules are available, but you can develop fission and fusion modules as the game goes on. I wonder if they're going to have anything like really specialty type, like in late game, like 0-point energy or something crazy like that. That would be awesome, would it not? I can feel the inner nerd tingling inside me. It is important to note that the solar power output decreases dramatically the further you go from the sun and are unlikely to be useful beyond Mars, but panels will have a huge output near or on Mercury. Now, I don't believe that's necessarily true. One of the main reasons is because solar output is constant, so it would always be a source of energy. So you could potentially go to Europa, which is around Jupiter, or even around Saturn, and still get significant amounts of solar energy from solar panels, especially if we develop better solar panel technology, which obviously we will, and have large farms, or you concentrate solar energy via mirrors and stuff like that, especially if exposed to space, so you have no attenuation through atmosphere, which is one of the reasons that solar panels on Mars suck so bad. That, and it is further away, so yeah. At present, there are 84 modules the human factions can build. Many can be built both at stations and bases, although some are HAB type specific. Most need a project completed to unlock them. A few are faction specific. Ooh, yes. Several are upgrades of prior ones, of course. The Materials Lab can become a Materials Research Center, which can become a Materials Institute at the largest of HABs. Ooh, yes. You know you like them big, don't lie. So we have modules for research, money and influence production, and HAB modules that grant engineering project capacity. And of course, there is nothing awesome without a cost. Most modules do have a support cost, which is drawn from your overall resources. Special note on a few mod types. There are 5 the devs wish to point out. We got mines, buildable only on bases, of course. These produce space resources based on the habitat's site profile. They are built with electromagnetic catapults to fling material into space and into your research pool. Hell yeah. We have the supply depot. These Let your fleet take on propellant and reload weapons by drawing down your space resource supply, or these can go on the smallest habs. We expect you'll need a network of them around the solar system to keep your fleet moving. And I bet these will be primo targets for when you decide to blow up somebody else's fleet. Oh yeah, it'd be good stuff. Next up, we have the shipyard. These let you build and repair your warships. Larger yards speed construction of these ships. You'll have a shipyard manager interface with build queues so you can coordinate construction across your holdings. Very cool. Next up, barracks. These hold Marines to defend your hab from enemy assaults. From stations in an interface orbit, the Marines can also drop to assault surface bases. Drop assaults. Oh yes, as long as one of your counselors is present to lead them. Aww. Counselors can similarly lead Marine assaults from one of your bases against a nearby enemy base. Fair enough. Fair enough. And lastly, defense modules. These mount anti-ship and point defense weaponry for space combat. If a station is involved in combat, the enemy objective is to destroy these modules. After the battle, the station can be boarded or destroyed. Defense modules on bases fire back when the base is being bombarded from orbit. You may also send counselors to habs by hitching a ride on a ship or boosting them. Counselors may also board enemy human ships or the smallest of habs if they have the undercover trait, but second and third tier habs are large enough for the counselors to board freely. Once aboard, counselors may run a number of missions, including sabotaging a particular module or persuading the habs leaders to switch sides to join your faction. So that's why they have to have the undercover trait. So they're not talking about invading in this aspect. They're talking about where they're controlled by an enemy and you're trying to do something to it, and you're not like actively bombarding it from orbit or blowing it up in space or something like that. At the 2021 campaign start, the only hab is the TI's version of the International Space Station. It will typically start belonging to the Academy faction. It's a platform with a core, 2 solar panel modules, and a space science module. Pretty, ain't it? Indeed, it is. All right, boys, that's going to be it for us today on our Dev Diary dive into Terra Invicta. I want to thank the guys from Pavois Interactives for coming up with this game and also making the Long War II module. It has brought me endless hours of awesome entertainment. Thank you very much, guys. And don't forget to like and subscribe the video down below. Yes, indeed. And remember, my boys, I stream almost every day at 0700, that's 7 a.m. Central Standard Time, for you non-military scrubs on twitch.tv/Tango Hotel. Yes, that's twitch.tv/Tango Hotel. Until next time, my dudes, peace out.